Now, our final session this afternoon is a panel discussion, so if I can ask Philip Connolly, Associate Director of KPMG, to come to the stage, Giacomo Bozziamede, who's Policy Officer with Bioenergy Europe, Anna Venturini, Senior Policy Officer with the European Biogas Association, and Mark Summerfield, who's Deputy Director of Policy with the Association of Renewable Energy and Clean Technology in the UK. And I'll hand you over to Seán, who's going to chair the session.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have reached our final panel, so I do promise you we'll have you out of here by about 4:25, 4:30 at the latest, or maybe sooner if we can. We need to get powered up here, guys. Yeah, we're back up again. I hope I don't bring misfortune on the screen again, but anyways. So thank you all for bearing with us. We do apologise for running slightly over schedule. So this is going to be an interesting panel. So I'm delighted to welcome our speakers here. And in particular, well, all of our speakers, but in particular our speakers that have travelled to take part in this particular panel. So I'm going to start off with Anna. So Anna is the Policy Officer, Senior Policy Officer with the European Biogas Association, joining the IrBEA in June 2022 as the Policy Officer in charge of the transport and managing the IrBEA working group dealing with transport-related topics. And before joining the IrBEA team, Anna worked in Brussels for almost 5 years, first at the European Parliament for an Italian MEP of the Transport Committee, then as a Policy and Communication Advisor at the Federation of European Private Port Companies and Terminals. So you're welcome, Anna, and thanks very much for joining us. So maybe if we could start by you, and I know that you have a couple of slides. We're going to do this as kind of a hybrid in that a number of the presenters or the panelists have a couple of slides, and we're going to just talk to those slides. So Anna, maybe first, if you'd just outline to us about the work of the IrBEA and your particular role. So we're a member in IrBEA, we're a proud member, and we actively participate. But if you could tell us about your own role and the work of the IrBEA, because a lot of people here may not know what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, as some of you may already know, the European Biogas Association is a bit the voice of biogas and biomethane at the European level. We are present in Brussels, where we have a very good network of contacts, and we have a definitely fast-growing membership. Just yesterday, I was told that we went above the 290 members, of which 46 are national associations right now. And well, we have also a very fast-growing team. We are now 17. We are an international team, and we are internally divided in three sub-teams, let's say. The policy, where I also, of which I am a member, the technical team, which is the one that mainly works on the technical issues, and for instance, they are right now working on the statistical report for this year. And we have the communication team. So we also work with members in our working groups. We have 6 working groups that are divided by sector or issue. And it's where we develop the key messaging, the general approach of the association together with the secretariat and obviously our management.
Okay, and if we move on maybe, and if you could briefly outline to us the current levels of biomethane production at a European level. I think we have a slide, Stephen, here on this.
Yes, so well, here in this slide you will see the data from the statistical report of last year. Yeah. So we have seen that the production has been growing constantly, and especially when we look at the last 3-4 years, we see 20% year-on-year augmentation when it comes to the production of biomethane. So last year we saw that the combined production of biogas and biomethane was around 18.4 BCMs, of which 3.5 were of biomethane. Okay. So we are talking around 4.5% of the entire EU gas demand. And well, I was not given
the possibility to share with you the data that will be that they are now being developed and they will be comprised in the statistical report for 2023. But indeed, the numbers look pretty good also for the production of 2022.
And then moving along to the future, what's the projections? And I think your next slide shows the projections in terms of biomethane plant. So if you want to go through that.
Well, here, as you know, we have to reach the 35 BCMs that are asked to the sector by the Commission. It's in the REPowerEU plan. We already know, so here you see some data that are more newer, let's say. This is our biomethane plan that we developed back in May. We see that right now we have 1,322 biomethane plants active as of April of this year. And 67% of these plants are connected to the grid. And when we look at the future, so next slide. Well, here is pretty much where we need to be and where we really think we will be in 7 years. So by 2030, we, and with the help also of Gas for Climate, have calculated that we will not only be able to attain the 35 BCM target, but possibly with the right legislative framework, we will be able to go even beyond. And when we are looking at this data and these figures here, we're talking about sustainable potential. We're not talking about technical potential. Yeah. I know that it's always a very controversial question. Is there going to be enough sustainable feedstock? And indeed, by our calculations, it is the case. But obviously, we need a sound legislative framework. But we have seen already with the implementation of the various renewable energy directives implementation, we saw that already the trend changed a lot. So much so that as of 2017, as you can see here, and 2018 was the implementation of the first RED, we already see that almost no new plants were developed to work with monocrops and energy crops. So indeed, we can definitely reach our target with sustainable feedstock, but the good legislation needs to be there.
And in terms of investment then, if you move on to the next slide, yeah. In terms of investment then, where are the opportunities going to arise, or how is that investment going to take place, and what's the outlook for that?
Yes, so, Rome wasn't built in a day. We know that to attain this 35 BCMs, there will be a need for big investment. We have calculated more or less 83 billion euros to attain the target. But again, this May, thanks also to the help of our members, we were able to publish our first biomethane investment outlook. And indeed, we see that investments is on the way. There are already 18 billion earmarked for the investment in biomethane production. And we see that other will be coming in the future.
And then moving on to the uses for that biomethane. So where is this biomethane going to be used? I know this is quite a complex chart.
Yes, we try to give an idea. If you want, you can find also, this is an image that we have in in one of the fact sheets that we have been publishing this year. So you can go and look it back. But indeed, there are a number of end uses. The end uses depend especially, they are different from member state to member state. It depends on the regulatory framework, on the development of the grid. And if you can go on. The data that we are using and we are looking at to be comprised in our statistical report for this year looks a bit like this: the division of the biomethane use.
Overreaching.
Yes, definitely. Electricity and heating are two big end users, especially when produced together. But indeed, also industry is getting more and more interesting. And in transport, it has been a while now that, especially for biomethane, it has been...
Is that down to infrastructure to administer the gas into... Has that been the challenge, or what is the reason for that being lower, maybe?
Well, if we look specifically to transport, the divide between member states is very impressive. For instance, Germany is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, producer of biomethane, but because they have a very well-developed grid, they prefer to inject directly into the grid. While in the Nordics, where the gas infrastructure is not that well developed, they use the big majority of their biomethane for the transport sector. So it really depends. Okay. But yes, this is the divide.
Then in terms of your final slide around the policy and the EU policy framework and what's happening in Brussels. So if you want to just summarize that for us in terms of...
Yes, so...
it's probably your next slide. Yeah, there it is. Yeah.
That is. So we see that right now there is a bit of a paradox when it comes to the incentives toward the production and then the use of biogas and biomethane in end uses. So when we see big drivers like the REPowerEU plan, but also we were talking before about the RED, but also the net zero industry, we see that there is a big incentive to produce more, but at the same time, we see some game stoppers when it comes to end users. Definitely, when we talk about road transport, we see that a number of doors are being closed, giving primacy more to maritime transport or aviation. And the same we see in heating, where we have primary legislations such as EPBD, which is really keeping the door open also for biomethane and biogases in the heating sector. And then we see more technical files like eco-design right now that are trying to put technical barriers to the use of biogas and biomethane. But indeed, it's our role to flag this paradox to policymakers. And just this morning, we had I was following the vote at the Parliament on the CO2 standards for heavy-duty vehicles, and we had a small but important victory where indeed there was a change in the definition of fuels that are eligible for the heavy-duty transport.
Okay, very good. So I think that brings to the conclusion of your slides. So thanks very much for that, and we'll come back to you again in a second. So next.